but he's also a member of the Lyceum alumni, so he has attended the same college as us. So let's get to know him better. So we'll get to meet our patron in a while. So before we start, I would just like to introduce LiveTech already know what it is. So when everything is moving on in technology and there are so many advancements, so LiveTech is aiming to provide opportunities for members to enhance their computer skills. Hear from professionals in the industry like Mr. Omar, who we have today with us, and also get some hands-on experience with working on particular areas of interest. So I would like the chairs of Lyceus who are here with us today to publish this interview and take part in the interview taking to also introduce Lyceus to us.
Hello everyone, I'm Ramshad, Society Chair of Lyceus. Lyceus is basically Licensed Journalism Society, which aims to elevate voices of a student body. As part of Lyceus, we write, edit, design, and learn to collaborate.
So let's begin. Let's start with the first question.
Hello, my name is Amna, and today my first question for you is that how was your experience at the Lyceum and did it help your higher education in any way at all?
No, great question. Thanks for that. It was a really good experience. So I made a lot of friends. Some of them I'm still in touch with. Um, I think for me, Lyceum was a little different because so I was coming from Foundation Public School at that time, and we had a very small graduating class. It was maybe I think 80 people. So I knew everyone, and then afterwards, I think as most people find out right after O levels and coming into A levels, the group that you've kind of been going up with, it splits up, right? People go in different paths. So that was the first part. So it's a bit challenging, adjusting and making new friends. But then, once the school year kicked off, right, and the activities, so I was part of the Lyceum football team. Those things kicked off. I think then it was a good experience. In terms of like the academic part, I think it was super helpful. So I was an econ kind of focused person at that time. So I was taking economics. I took accounting, math, and I think general. Those were the four subjects. And I think the economics and math part certainly help in terms of analytical skills, right? And kind of critical thinking, logical reasoning. So those were, I think, the parts that helped me the most going into college. And then the other part is because I was going to the US, taking some of the A2 courses, I was actually able to get credit for that. So I could basically get course credit in college. And so I was able to take fewer classes. I could have graduated early, but I chose not to.
All right, that was very interesting to know. My second question for you is that how challenging was your admission in the Northwestern and were the challenges worth the time that you spent there?
So I don't think the admission was very challenging, I'll be honest. I think the challenging part was preparing to apply to colleges. Back then we had, I think, just two counselors, so it was very busy. Obviously they're trying to help everyone, and you need a lot of guidance. So I'm talking about, 14 years ago. I graduated class of 2007. And so I think the biggest thing for me was if you're applying to the UK, it was easier because the A-level system fits into how the UK system works, right? So back then there was like this thing called UCAS, and you apply through there, and the timelines work as well. For the US, the timelines don't work. So when you're applying to the US, they only have your A1 results, and you get an offer based on that. It's not like a conditional offer like the UK. So for me, like A2 was actually very chill and relaxed because like it didn't really matter what grade I got at the end because I was already admitted. Um, but what was tough was that you're doing your A1, right? You're doing mocks, but then you have to do the SAT. The UK kids didn't have to worry about SAT. And back then it was you had the regular SAT and then you had SAT to the subject tests. So I had to take I think I took three SAT twos and then the SAT as well. And I took the SAT twice because I wasn't, satisfied with my first score. So I think that was the toughest part. And then the application was not so bad because we were using what was called the common application. So you could select a number of universities, colleges in the US, and just fill out the same application. And then there was a few supplementary things that you needed to do. Like for Northwestern, there was an essay that I had to write. So I did that. And then it was just waiting to find out where you got admitted. I think the challenges were worth the time. What the most difficult part was uh, transitioning, right? So going from Karachi to Chicago, the weather was just not something that I could easily get used to, right? It was minus 28 Celsius at some point. So that was tough. And then initially, most of our schools here in Karachi, right? Like they're not very big. So I was used to being a big fish in a small pond, to put it that way, right? I had 10 straight A's in O levels, 4 A's in A levels. I mean, that's probably not a big deal. You guys probably get 15 A's now. But back then it was like, so I was like student of the year on the student council. And then when I made the transition to college, it wasn't as easy, right? Not everything worked out. I wasn't the best student in my class. The class sizes were huge. There were, I think, 2,000 people in my undergraduate class. So that was tough. And the lucky thing for me was one of my classmates from Lyceum was actually my roommate at Northwestern my first year. So that helped a little bit, but I was homesick. I missed my friends and family. And at one point in my first quarter, I had reached out to LUMS. I was so desperate to go back to Pakistan, I was going to transfer. But I talked to my mom, and she said, no, just wait out a little bit, right? Go get over the winter period. Once the weather gets better, maybe you'll settle in. And luckily for me, like that's when I found my friend circle over there, and that really helped me kind of get settled. So it was challenging, but I think it was worth it.
Okay, so now I will introduce our patron to you all, Miss Huma.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Humayma, patron of the Lightech Society. I would like to thank Mr. Omar for taking out time for this session. I'm really thankful to you. And students, I'm really thankful that you are participating in our sessions. I'm sure our students will learn a lot from Mr. Omar's experience. And yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Miss. Thank you so much for taking out the time. We're very thankful. So let's continue.
Completing your education, what difficulties did you face to get a job?
Yeah, great question. So I was fortunate when I was graduating, it was 2011. And so the worst of the financial crisis was already over. The job opportunities were a little better for my class than they were for the classes before me. So I think I have a spreadsheet somewhere about the number of jobs that I applied to. I want to say it was like maybe 30, 40, out of which I got maybe 5, 6 interviews, and then out of those I had 3 job offers. So it's always a numbers game. You have to kind of spread out a little bit in terms of reaching out to different companies and going through on-campus recruiting. What I found was, the companies that were coming to campus were more like the fact that they were investing that time meant that they were actually interested and you had better chances to get a job there versus trying to find something online, right, on their website and applying, because then the resume just goes into a black hole, right? I'm sure they get hundreds and thousands of resumes. So unless you have some kind of relationship or connection, that didn't really help. So focusing on-campus recruiting was what helped me. I was an econ major in my undergrad, so I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be something business related, but I wasn't very entrepreneurial, so I didn't want to do like a startup or something myself. Um, Back then, consulting was the bright and shiny thing that everyone wanted to do. So I applied for consulting jobs. I had interviews with McKinsey, I believe with Bain as well, and then really it came down was where did I want to go after college, right? Did I want to stay in the U.S.? Did I want to go somewhere else? And my family was still in Pakistan at that time, so I did want to go to the Middle East just to be closer to my family. And so in the end, I was deciding between two offers in Chicago, one with Deloitte and the other one with Booz and Company, which is now Strategy and part of PwC. And then the third one was with A.T. Kearney, another Chicago-based consulting firm, but it was for their Dubai office. So as part of the final round of interview, they flew us out to Dubai, got to see the office and meet the people. And that was actually my first time visiting Dubai, so I loved it, and that was an easy decision for me to take that offer.
Okay, so can you tell us a little about the job opportunities available to a student after a degree in marketing?
Yeah, so I don't have any personal experience because my degree was like a Bachelor of Arts in economics, and my school didn't have like undergraduate business, so you couldn't do like a marketing major or an accounting major unless you were doing it like a MBA or a master's level. But from my experience, there are a lot of roles available in marketing. The one thing I will say is, at least for the US, if you don't have like a citizenship or green card status already, then going with a degree like marketing is risky because it doesn't count as a STEM degree. And so post graduation, you don't get a lot of time to stay in the US and find a job. So unless you're lucky and you find a job through on-campus recruiting and the company is willing to sponsor an international student, um, you won't have a lot of time, and you will have invested in getting that degree, but you won't be able to get a job here that pays you to kind of um, get a good return on that investment. So that's just one thing I'll call out in terms of general options for marketing degrees. I think depending on the industry, there's a lot of opportunities. So FMCG is the first one that comes to mind. I know the competition is a lot. Back when I was doing it, I think Unilever and those were like the big names that everyone wanted to work with. So that's one area where you can go into. In tech, there are marketing roles as well. So there are product marketing managers, and back then my understanding of marketing was very limited. It was like, oh, you have to the 5 Ps or the 3 Ps, right? But there's so much more than that, right? There's all these different channels. You have to work with partners, even at big enterprises, right? Working with the sales team and kind of enabling the sales folks. So those are some of the roles that you can take on in marketing, and depending on the industry and the size of the company, you might be able to specialize, right? Like you might be able to specialize in channel marketing or on the social media side, right? So definitely a lot of opportunities there, but it is very competitive. That's what I'll say.
Thank you, it was really helpful.
Why did you
Just a
decide to go
follow-up
and work?
question. Just a minute. So I had just a little follow-up question over here. Do you think the level of competition is still the same?
I think it's more, definitely a lot more
Yeah.
than when I was graduating. The school sizes are bigger, right? And even the talent that's available. Like I was going through some of the Lytech Instagram stuff, and there's no way I was doing that kind of stuff when I was in Lyceum, right? I think in my resume, I listed that I was proficient in Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. Those were the kind of computer skills, right? that counted back then. Now that's table stakes. So you need to be, doing coding, you need to be doing graphics editing, right? So I think it's much more difficult for you guys.
True. Yes.
So my question for you is, why did you decide to go and work in the US, Pakistan, and Middle East?
Yeah, so one reason, as I mentioned, was family, right? I wanted to come back and be closer, but the other part was financial as well. So I had taken some loans. I had like a almost like a 90% scholarship when I went to Northwestern, but I did have to take loans and I had to pay them back. So I knew that if I came back to Pakistan, given the rupee conversion rate at that time, it would be difficult to do that. So it was down to staying in the U.S. or Middle East. And the reason I had gone to the US in the first place is because so I'm a US citizen. I was actually born in LA. My parents came to the US in the 80s, but then they moved back to Pakistan. So I did all of the schooling and everything in Pakistan, and I didn't really come to. So I left the US when I was 3 years old, and I didn't come back until college. So, because I had that opportunity, because of the passport, I knew that I could get financial aid, I could get scholarships. In the end, when we worked out the numbers, I remember with my parents, it was costing me almost the same to go to LUMS as it was costing me to go to Northwestern in Chicago. So that's why I decided to go there. And then the Middle East for family reasons, worked there, got some experience. Met my wife there as well. She is also a Lyceum alumni, but we didn't overlap. She was 2 years, so I had already graduated when she was at Lyceum. And then after that, I did my MBA, and then post my MBA, for family reasons, we wanted to settle in the US, so that's why I decided to come back here.
So my next question is, shifting from your home country to the US, was it difficult? Do you ever regret your decision?
It definitely was a big decision. It's very difficult. One of the things that made it challenging was my grandfather had passed away while I was at Lyceum, and one of my close friends, who was also a Lyceum student, had passed away. I don't know if the bench is still there in front of Bashir Bhai's cafeteria. It had a plaque with his name on it. Shahzad Sikandar was his name. So, those incidents really made me think, like, if I'm so far away from family, like, and if something happens with our house, like, what would we do? And it really kind of made me think, okay, I don't want to, go so far away. I did have some family in the US. My papa was here, but it's not the same thing. So, but then as part of the SAT, I don't know if it's still there. When you go on the College Board website and you fill out your profile, it asks you to select some colleges where you want to send your scores automatically, right? So just on a whim, like, I selected Harvard and a bunch of other places, right? Princeton and I think UPenn. Um, and I got a good score. I got back then it was out of 2400, and I got 2170. And so I got a letter in the mail. I was surprised it actually made it, through Pakistan Post, but it did, and it was from Harvard, and it said, we saw your scores and we saw your profile, and we encourage you to apply. And we have financial aid packages that cover full tuition if you're admitted. So that was kind of the trigger for me to apply. Um, do I regret that decision? I don't think so. Hindsight is 2020. I was able to go back almost every summer. There was one summer where I did an internship in the US, so I was away for I think a year and a half from my family. That was the longest I'd ever been away, and it was tough. But I knew, this is that's just a sacrifice that you have to make, right, for the future. So I think looking back, it was a good decision.
That's very inspiring to know, Mr. Umar. Just out of curiosity, where exactly is that bench that you just mentioned? I've never seen it. I don't
You
know if
haven't
it's
seen it.
still there, but like I just want to know where it is.
So opposite is Bashir Bhai still there? Like the cafeteria, the canteen,
Like
or
his
is it?
place is still there, but he's rarely there because of the restrictions imposed by
Oh,
COVID.
okay.
But I'm
So
sure everyone before us, saw Bashir canteen every day.
oh, okay, okay, okay. Got it. Got it. So I'm trying to remember now. So when you come in through the, I guess it's opposite Bashir Bhai's canteen. There's some trees over there, so it's like a little shaded. And there, I remember there's like a raised kind of platform right opposite Bashir Bhai's canteen. There were some plants and some trees, and then beyond that, there was like a bench. So I think one of the classrooms, like from the window, you can see it. And if you come, if you're coming from the front side of Lyceum and you take the gully that's on the right, you walk all the way down towards the cafeteria, it should be on your left, where all the muras were kept. I don't know if they're still there.
Yeah, they're still there. I look out for the bench. Thank you.
I'm Ushna. So for my first question from you is what prompted you to apply to Microsoft for a job?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that one. So when I was finishing my MBA, most of the job opportunities were in tech or in consulting. And that might be different for different business schools. So I was at INSEAD in France, and majority of the class was going into consulting. A lot of the MBAs were sponsored consulting, consultants themselves, and they were returning back. So those were the main options. There were some options, right? People going into healthcare and consumer goods and in other places, but those were very niche and very limited. I know one person who ended up going to Tesla, but that's just luck and you have the right connection. So it wasn't really an option. Um, I had done consulting and it wasn't for me, right? As glamorous as it looked, right? Traveling and staying in nice hotels and all that stuff. It was really exhausting personally for me. Like the work-life balance just wasn't there. I was working on weekends and really kind of burning out. So I knew I didn't want to get back into consulting. So I applied to tech. I think I had a first round with Amazon as well, and some other companies. Microsoft, I'd been a Microsoft user for a long time. I think the first OS I used was Windows 95 when my uncle had given me a laptop. So, that was a company that I was familiar with. When they came on campus and I talked to some of the people there, who are alumni, right? I got a good feeling about the environment and the culture. Satya Nadella, who's our CEO, had just been in the job like I think maybe a year or so at that time, right? And the company culture was really changing. And I'd been working at IBM, so I knew about Microsoft as a competitor. And so I applied. At that time, it wasn't really clear what the role was. It was kind of like a graduate program. They said, apply and we'll see where you're a good fit. So as part of on-campus recruiting, a lot of universities and colleges will create resume books where they put together, all the students' resumes, and then interested companies can go and take a look, right? So mine was included as part of the group of students who had previous tech experience. And so the Microsoft recruiter actually reached out to me and she said, "Oh, we like your resume. We encourage you to apply." And so I did, and the rest is history.
That was interesting. So who's next? Please continue with the question.
So my next question for you is how is your experience working with Microsoft? Were the opportunities for you to learn and grow? Was it easy to fit in and find good friends?
Yeah, it's been really good so far. So I've been at Microsoft for a little over 4 years. It was different. I was at IBM before, and that was in the Middle East. So it was a little bit of, I think, the company culture as well as the region. But at Microsoft, like I really enjoy, the peers that I work with, right? Like the work environment, the company culture is very, inclusive, very innovative, right? It's not very rigid and doesn't feel very corporate, right? I mean, this is my office. This is how I work. I go into right after our meeting here, I'm going to jump into another call at work. So it's very laid back that way. In terms of opportunities to learn and grow, so I'm still in the same role that I was when I joined the company. I've just been promoted, but in terms of the function, it's still the same. And that's mainly down to me. Like, I wanted to kind of specialize and get comfortable in one thing before I moved on. So I think the opportunities are there. It's really up to you as an individual, right? Like, are you someone who wants to change roles every year and a half, 2 years? There are people, who I work with who do that. Every couple of years, they'll jump around, and the company is big enough where they can accommodate you, right? So depending on your interests, you can go from product marketing to, product management. You can go, customer facing. You can be in an internal corp role. So those opportunities are there. My manager has been very supportive, right? If there are interested opportunities that come up, and I want to apply and try, he's happy to do the referral, right? So it's the culture isn't like, oh, if I lose this person, how am I going to find the replacement? It's more like, how do we, make Microsoft work for this person, right? Like, how can Microsoft be the platform where whatever this person wants to do, whatever they're interested in, they're able to do that and they're able to have an impact. In terms of how easy it was to fit in, I think it was relatively easy. So my manager is actually based out of Seattle and I'm based in Dallas. So I think I've seen my manager maybe 8 times since I joined the company in person. Some of them were at conferences. A couple of times I went to the headquarters. Usually I would go at least once a year, but because of COVID, right, we're all mostly working from home. So I haven't actually seen any of my coworkers in a year and a half. We have a local office in Dallas, but that's also, shut down because of COVID and there were some renovations happening. So that gives you a sense of like, how difficult it is. But at the same time, when I joined, it was very easy to kind of fit in, find people with similar interests. And, I work across a lot of different teams within our organization. And yeah, the people that I work with are great, very supportive, and I enjoy it. I mean, do I have friends at work? Some I used to play, football with them when we were still at the office. But I would say most of my friends are outside of the company, and I think that's just me personally. I like to, keep a boundary between work and, personal life. So that's probably it. But I'm sure, like, if you wanted to have close friends at work, you could find them at Microsoft.
That's very interesting. Makes me want to work at Microsoft.
Hello, my name is Vishaka, and my first question for you is, what are you currently working on with Microsoft? What was your favorite project at Microsoft that you're most proud of?
That's a great question. So right now, I'm part of the customer experience and customer experience and success organization at Microsoft. And within that, my role is support planner. So it's more of a program management role. At any given time, I have like 8 to 10 different projects in my portfolio, kind of at various phases. And really, what my job is when Microsoft, specifically the Office team, is releasing new products or new features into the market. How do we make sure that we can support our customers? So let's say, I'm company ABC and I'm a big enterprise customer of Microsoft. I have, 5,000 users, employees in my company that use Microsoft products every day. How do we help them? So our commercial support doesn't work directly with the end user. So say I'm an employee at company ABC, if I'm having some issues with Teams, I can't reach out to Microsoft directly. I have to reach out to my local administrator, IT administrator, and if they cannot resolve it, then they will reach out to Microsoft and get help. So we have global support teams, available 24/7 in different languages. And so my job is to make sure they are trained and ready and prepared to handle all these customer questions when they come in. In terms of staffing and capacity, I have to make sure that we, because of COVID, right, a lot of people are working from home and so many people started using Teams. So we had a surge in volume. So that was one of the things I had to work on to make sure we had the right capacity. So there's a little bit of forecasting and planning work there as well. In terms of like my favorite project in Microsoft, so what I'll say is I started a program called Live Events Assistance Program. This was almost 2 years ago. And we launched it as a preview, and the goal behind that program was if you're a commercial Microsoft customer and you're using Microsoft Teams to do a virtual event, then we will have people available on standby who can help you remotely with like the configuration, the setup, those kind of things. And so when I'm talking about like a virtual event, think of a company town hall, right? A large enterprise which has been forced to kind of work from home, and the C-level executives are trying to kind of rally the organization, right? Communicate to their people because they're not in the office anymore. So you might have anywhere from like 10,000 to 20,000 people attending that virtual meeting. So it's not as easy and simple as a regular Teams meeting to set up. So that was what we offered assistance. So we started with a small team out of India. We had, I think, maybe 8 people at that time. Fortunately or unfortunately, that coincided with the with the COVID-19 pandemic. And so even though we had started the program as a preview and it was available for free, we got so many requests for help, like the volume jumped up 10 times what we had anticipated. So we had to scramble and add capacity, train people, and get it going. But I was proud of it because it allowed me to kind of put our technology in a position where we were able to help other people. So a lot of companies were forced to kind of work remotely, and it was our software that was helping them connect with their employees and their customers and their partners. And I was able to kind of put together that program that helped with that.
Okay, my next question for you is, how did you prepare for the interview? Please give us some tips.
Yeah, so I think as some of you may already know, there's a couple of different types of interviews, right? For consulting type jobs, there's case interviews where they'll give you a scenario and they want to see, your thought process. How logical are you? And the final answer isn't what's important; it's how you get there. Can you break down the problem into smaller chunks that you can kind of easily manage, and then demonstrate your logic behind it and get to a conclusion, right? And you have to make certain assumptions, but they have to be they can't just be shots in the dark, right? They have to be grounded in some reality, or you need to have some basis for your assumptions. So that's one type. Microsoft didn't do that kind of interview, and I'm glad because those can be very it's a lot of pressure. And I remember I was having a final round interview with McKinsey, and I cracked. Like I just could not. It was like a mental block, and I just could not get beyond it. So those are tougher to prepare for. I would say do case interviews with friends. Probably not something you need to worry about now. Maybe like in your second or third year of college, that's when you should be doing that and doing it on a regular basis, so you can get a feel for like the pressure, and it almost becomes like a habit, right? You develop these frameworks that you can then go to and apply them if you're stuck. The other type is like the behavior type, right? And so that's what Microsoft did. It was more about walk us through your resume. Why did you pick this major? Why did you decide to work over here? What were your responsibilities? And more situational questions, right? Like, okay, so if you're working with a teammate who's not very, let's say, cooperative. How do you deal with that situation? Or you're working with a customer and they're upset at a situation. How do you handle that? So it's more about that. They want to kind of see your aptitude, and kind of understand a little bit about your personality as well. Like, how would you fit? It's more of a fit interview. And then the resume part is more about your, academic qualifications, your work experience. So I think those, again, I would say the best way to do it is to actually write down some of these type of questions, and there's some good books, available that you can refer to, right, that can help you with this. And then actually write down the answer. Like, the one mistake that I did was I would read the questions and be like, oh yeah, I know this. Like, I can use this example, or I can use this story as a reference. But when you're in the moment and under pressure, right, it doesn't come very easily to you. So if you write it down, and I would say collect like, 8, 10, maybe that's a little too much, right? As you kind of go through your career, you'll have more examples, but have like a set of examples and stories ready that can demonstrate, your, I guess, aptitude, your skills, your strengths in different situations, right? And you might get the question, right? What is your biggest weakness? I know it's like a very cliched question, but there's a reason why they ask it, right? Like, they're trying to understand your EQ, right? Like, how self-aware are you? Do you know what your blind spots are, right? And are you taking steps? Like, do you have a growth mindset? Are you actually taking steps to address and correct some of those, weaknesses? So that would be my suggestion.
Very helpful.
Can
Thank
you
you so
just
much.
can you tell the names of the books, some books, so can I refer to them?
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that. I think one I remember is Case in Point. That was for, and I'll put it into the chat as well. That was mainly for consulting type interviews. But for behavioral ones, let me get back to you on what is a good reference there.
Thank
I
you
also
for
have a
the.
question about the problem solving question that you get in the interview. Does that still happen? Because I heard from one of our other guests that that's something you really need to prepare for.
I mean, so when I'm talking about my interview experience, that was 4 years ago for my MBA, and
Yeah.
then for undergraduate, that was almost 10, 11 years ago. So things might have changed, but from what I have heard, I think depending on the type of company, right? So I think even some of the FMCGs
For
might be doing.
Microsoft.
For Microsoft, yes, like they will do behavioral.
Yeah.
But if you're applying for certain roles, like there are roles called business planning where they want people with a consulting background, then yes, they will do case interviews there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing I forgot to mention is, definitely reach out to people who are at that company, right? Alumni, LinkedIn is your best friend, and try to understand from them, what are some of the things that are asked for. Ideally, you can find someone who's in that function, but even if they're not in the function, at least if they're at the company, then they can help you a little bit.
Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very inspiring.
Okay, so I'll just read this one. I know we're getting close to the end of our call.
Yes, so
So
sorry
what
for the
would be your
delays.
advice? No, that's fine. That's fine. What would be your advice to people wanting to work at Microsoft? I think one of the biggest things at Microsoft right now is growth mindset. And I think there's actually a book by Carol Dweck. I'll put her name into the chat, that talks about it. And really what that means is, are you kind of set in your ways, right? Like, oh, I'm a know-it-all, right? I know what I know, and I'm the best at it. Or are you a learn-it-all, right? Do you is your mind open to the fact that you know you don't know everything and there's people around you, right? Super smart people, and you can learn from other people and you can build on top of what they are building. So that's something that they look for very much at Microsoft. It's more of a culture fit thing. Are you going to be collaborative and cooperative, or are you like, just driven and just focused on yourself, right? Because that's not the kind of that's not a very good team player. So my advice would be make sure you can demonstrate that and try to get experiences that line up with your desired function, right? If you want to get into a marketing kind of role, right, see if you can get internships, see if you can get some kind of experience that is aligned to it. Uh, and then most importantly, I think when you get the chance, right, to be able to demonstrate like what are some transferable skills that you can bring, right? No one expects you to, graduate from a university with a degree in product management and be ready to, take on that from day one. But they want you to have the right background and the skills so that you can quickly ramp up in the job. So that would be my advice. And then, obviously reach out to people at the company, talk to them, and get their sense for what's required in that specific function.
Thank you. That's very helpful advice. Let's move on.
How did I manage my other responsibilities, university and work together?
Yeah.
Good question. So when I was in college, what I tried to do was balance my load a little bit. So, for example, freshman year, because I was still adjusting to, being in a new country, new location and stuff, right? I didn't take very difficult classes. I took some stuff that I knew I would be able to kind of manage. I split my workload that way. There was most of the time I was actually working. I had an on-campus job, so I tried to kind of plan around it, right? So I had to work. I think can't remember. Maybe it's like 15 hours a week or something like that. So try to kind of build my schedule around that so I could fit in, maybe 2 hours of work every day and then also have time for classes. And then in terms of extracurricular activities, that's where I tried to balance a little bit. So my freshman year, I was more of a participant in the sense that I would just go to clubs and activities, right? Sports clubs, other types, and just attend events, but I wasn't very involved. My sophomore and junior years, I was more kind of settled, and so I actually became like an officer in one of the clubs. So there was like a Muslim Students Association on campus. So I was like I was the vice president, and then my junior year, I was like a co-president there. So as I got more settled, I took on more responsibility. But then there were certain quarters where um, I was co-president. I was also doing an internship at Goldman Sachs, and I was taking classes. So that was very difficult. I had to just, make some compromises. So my friends would be playing, Xbox and stuff at 8 p.m. and I would go to sleep because I knew I had to wake up at, 5, get ready, catch the train, go downtown, right, an hour commute, and then get to work, and then come back and do some, assignments for class. So you just have to kind of find the right balance. There's going to be different points in time where you can do different activities. By the winter quarter, or like, almost halfway through my senior year, I already had the job offer. So that was the time when I was more relaxed. And one of the things I did was one of my roommates, he just crammed, classes in his schedule. He took 5 classes in a quarter and he graduated in 3 years. I decided I wanted to stick around for 4 years and I spread out my classes. So there were some classes, some quarters where I had very few classes and I was able to kind of, give time to other activities.
That's
That's
very
very
inspiring.
helpful.
So, how was your experience working with IBM?
Yeah, it was a really good experience. My I just saw on LinkedIn that my old manager just left IBM. I wonder where she's going. Um, It was, I would say it was like my first proper job because I joined AT Kearney right out of college. Um, I don't think I was very well prepared. It was kind of like jumping into the deep end of the pool. And I only lasted, I think, like 9 months or 10 months there. So, and it was just because it was just the work-life balance wasn't there, and I was working on weekends and burning out. So I don't think I learned a lot, but I don't think it was I count that as my first true working experience. IBM was great because I joined as part of a graduate program because I had less than 1 year experience. So I had a cohort, a group of people who were coming in at the same time. A couple of them from Pakistan are really good friends. I'm still friends with them now. So it helped when you have that sense of camaraderie. Like we were all kind of young and um, relatively inexperienced. So that was great. I was lucky to get onto a really good project when I joined IBM. And I think out of the 4 years that I spent there, I was on this one project for 3 years. So I was able to establish like good relationship with the client as well. I got promoted on the project. It was good because it was consulting, so it was client facing work, and I enjoyed that. Being at the client side, helping them solve their problems, with our technology solutions. I learned like program management, project management there. I didn't do PMP, but I learned all the basics there. So I think it gave me a really good foundation. Um, and then in terms of beyond the project work, I think there were a lot of good people there, but also the culture was a little different. So IBM was much more of a corporate culture, at least compared to Microsoft right now. So that was something that was different, and some of it was because it was the region, it was the Middle East, and I'm comparing it to the US over here. But overall, very positive. I'm very grateful for the two managers that I had over there. Um, they helped me grow as a person, right, in terms of getting polished, right, and developing good communication skills, how to manage upwards, right, how to deal with demanding clients, those kind of things, and how to navigate politics. There's always politics at work, right, and you need to kind of figure out who the key stakeholders are, right, how to manage those relationships. So I think those are the things that I learned at IBM.
That was very helpful. I'm glad that you talked about the negative side as well as the positive. Okay, so my next question is, which internships would you recommend to those pursuing computer science and business majors?
Yeah, I think for computer science, right, I would say, I'll be honest, right, I haven't been back to Pakistan in 4 years. I'm planning on coming, inshallah, in a couple of months. So I don't know what the scene is like right now. From what I can tell, right, there's a lot of startups. Certainly working, with one of them would be a good experience, right? Because you get to see a lot of different functions. Like startups don't have the same scale as an enterprise, so they don't have like a separate HR department and a separate, IT department and separate product management. So I think that's a good way to get a sense of all the different functions. I know there are some corporations like I worked so after my MBA, before I joined Microsoft, I worked at Jaffer Business Systems for a little bit, and helped them launch an app called Hisab Kitab. You can actually download it on the Play Store or on iOS as well now. So I know they've launched like a graduate program as well. So those are the kind of opportunities I would recommend for computer science. Um, just getting a sense of, what does it take end to end, for an app, right? There's a lot of different components. There's a whole life cycle. Like, what does the architecture look like? What are the UI considerations, right? And then, how do you go to market? Those are the kind of things that, it might not be easy to find in a book. I think those are what you would get. For business majors, I would say uh, accounting, it's, at least back when I was there, right? Everyone wanted to do CA and get accounting jobs, which I think are great, but I don't know if they're very comprehensive, right? In terms of getting you a sense of the business as a whole. So I know like FMCG is like super competitive. I've heard like those are the ones where you learn a lot because you get a lot of responsibility as well, and you get a lot of exposure. Um, Beyond that, I would say, you know, even locally, we have a lot. It doesn't have to be like an international FMCG, right? Not everyone is going to go and work at Unilever or GSK. Um, there's a lot of big local companies as well. Um, so, try to find opportunities there. And the exposure that you're going to get is going to be um, it's going to be useful regardless, right? And it's when it comes down to it, it's a matter of how you spin it on your resume, right? Like what are the skills that you can show that you gained as part of it? Like the job title might be generic, right? It might just say, you know, college intern or something like that. But what did you get out of it? Like what kind of opportunities were you able to take, projects you were able to work on, right? Skills that you were able to gain. That's the most important thing.
That's a very
True.
informative and detailed answer. Thank you. So the last question for you is that what advice would you like to give to young people about choosing their career paths?
Yeah, I would say, they say man plans and God plans, right? So I would say don't be very set on like, okay, I just want to do this, right? And maybe if you're pre-medical, right, and you want to become a doctor, right, and that's something you have to kind of decide early on because you have to take all of those pre-med courses in college. Um, but I think apart from that, stay open, right? I had a different mindset when I was in Lyceum about what I wanted to do. But when I went to college and, took some courses, right, talked to people, met professors and other people, right, it kind of changed my perspective and showed me options that I didn't even know existed, right? Like back when I was at Lyceum, if you had asked me, or you would have told me that you're going to go and work at IBM or Microsoft, I wouldn't have believed you because I wasn't like a computer science major, right? So just stay open to opportunities, right? And be prepared. Um, the other thing I would say is if I could go back and do one thing, right? I would probably take physics in A levels and maybe do like industrial engineering or something like that in college because I feel like some of those engineering majors or courses, right, they really help you with the analytical skills. And that's super important. But at the same time, I would balance it with like liberal arts courses, humanities, because I think that helps you make well-rounded. Like, so there's a lot of engineers who are very analytical, but then, they're operating in a kind of made-up environment, right? Like in the real world, you need to be able to, manage relationships, manage stakeholders, right? Be able to communicate up the management chain, those kind of things. So those are things that I think, when you take liberal arts courses and you're writing papers in college, like that's what prepares you for that.
That was a very helpful answer for all of us, I guess, because since we are in that age in our life where we need to choose our career paths and stuff. So thank you very much for all of your answers. We had a great time.
Mr. Omar, I see that it's 7 p.m. already, so will it be possible for you to stay for like 5-10 minutes for the Q&A, or if not, then that's completely okay.
Yeah, I can stay for 5 more minutes before my next meeting. And then if there's other questions that we're not able to answer, then please email me and I'll try to get back.
Thank you so much. So are there any questions in the chat? Please be quick, everyone.
And feel free to come off mute and ask if that's easier or faster.
Can you also put your email in the chat so that it's easier for everyone to contact you after the meeting?
Sure.
For follow-up questions if there are any.
Okay, I see a question from Jawad. Have you ever considered leaving Microsoft and joining any other tech company? I haven't because I'm really happy here with my team, with my manager, with my role. And I know that, if if I want to change roles, there's a lot of opportunities within Microsoft to do that. Um, I think as a company, it's great. Some of the benefits here are pretty amazing. So I just had a daughter 2 months ago, and we um, we get 3 months paternity leave. That's more than some companies even give maternity leave. So these kind of things really kind of make you value the company. So I don't think I want to move anytime soon. I see another question from Horace. What were any major setbacks that you faced in school and career life? In school, I want to say like Alhamdulillah, I think I did well. When I was in O levels, I only took 10 subjects and I was able to get 10 A's. It was tough because everyone around me was taking tuitions, right? Like everyone was going to tuitions and stuff, and I never went for tuitions. Like it was just me and my mom, and we worked on everything together, right? So at that time, it was tough, go because I had to sacrifice other things, like I couldn't go and hang out with friends or go and play football and as much as I wanted to, other things. Because I had to kind of prepare by myself. I didn't have a lot of help then, but I think in the end it paid off and it was worth it. In later in school, I think I did have more setbacks. So, for example, in college, because I was on the economics track, I took econometrics as well, and you know, my mindset was, hey, I got A's in economics and math in A levels, so this should be a piece of cake. But I struggled. I really struggled. Going from straight A's to getting basically like a C in my econometrics class was it brought me back down to earth. And I actually had to drop a couple of classes in college just because I was doing so poorly, and I was like, I don't want this to mess up my transcript, so I just dropped before the deadline so that it didn't impact my GPA. So those kind of things help. I had to kind of reevaluate. There was a certificate program that was super competitive that I really was interested in. Because I dropped out of the prerequisite, I couldn't join that program. But then you find ways to work around it. Okay, Ali's question: how does it feel to be interviewed by old college about your accomplishments? It feels surreal. Definitely, I don't think I would have. I had thought that I'd come back and be talking to Lyceum students about what I've done. There's a lot more alumni who are more accomplished, so I'm happy to have that opportunity. And then Amna's question: why did you not join McKinsey? So I actually applied to McKinsey twice. My first time when I was in college, I think I made it to the second round. No, I did on-campus interviews and then I dropped out after that. Like I didn't make it to the next round. In my MBA, I made it to the final round, but as I said, I bombed the interview, so I didn't get the offer. All right. So I think that's all the questions.
Thank you so much for your answers. I also see that it's 7:05. Thank you for staying back.